May 3rd, 2007. Praia da Luz, Portugal. A small resort town on the Algarve coast. Quiet, beautiful, popular with British tourists. For Kate and Gerry McCann, this was supposed to be the perfect family holiday. They were both doctors, successful, educated, devoted parents. Gerry was a cardiologist. Kate had been a GP. They had 3 children, Madeleine, just 3 years old, and 2-year-old twins, Sean and Amelie. The family was staying at the Ocean Club Resort, apartment 5A, a ground floor unit with a view of the pool. They were traveling with friends, 7 other adults and their children, a group that would later be called the Tapas 7. It was the second to last day of their holiday. That morning at breakfast, Madeleine said something that would haunt her parents forever. "Why didn't you come when we cried last night?" Kate and Gerry looked at each other. They hadn't heard anything. Had someone been in the children's room? They didn't know. But by the end of that day, they would never see their daughter again. The evening of May 3rd started like any other night of their holiday. The McCanns and their friends, 3 other couples, made dinner reservations at a tapas restaurant on the resort grounds. The restaurant was only 50 meters from their apartment, close enough to check on the children regularly. The 3 McCann children were put to bed around 7:30 that evening. Madeleine was in her bed, near the door. The twins were in cots nearby. The parents left through the patio door, leaving it unlocked so they could check on the children easily. The group sat down to dinner at 8:30. They could see the apartment from where they sat, or at least they thought they could. The view was partially obscured by bushes and walls. Every 30 minutes, one of the adults would walk back to check on the children. At 9:05, Gerry McCann checked on them. He entered through the unlocked patio door. All 3 children were sleeping peacefully. He left, closing the door but not locking it. At 9:30, one of their friends, Jane Tanner, walked past apartment 5A on her way to check on her own children. She saw a man. He was walking quickly, carrying a child. The child appeared to be wearing pajamas. Jane thought nothing of it at the time. She assumed it was a father carrying his own sleeping child. At 10 o'clock, Kate McCann went to check on the children. What she found would change everything. Kate entered apartment 5A through the patio door. The living room was quiet. She walked toward the children's bedroom. The door was open wider than she remembered leaving it. She pushed it open and looked toward Madeleine's bed. Empty. Kate's heart stopped. She checked behind the door, under the bed, in the wardrobe. Madeleine was gone. The twins were still sleeping in their cots, but Madeleine, her pink blanket, her favorite stuffed toy cuddle cat, all still there. But Madeleine herself had vanished. Kate ran to the window. It was closed, but the shutter, the wooden shutter that covered the window from the outside, was raised. It had been down when they left for dinner. She was certain of it. Kate ran back to the restaurant, screaming words that would echo around the world. "They've taken her! Someone's taken her!" Within minutes, the entire resort was searching. Staff, guests, the McCann's friends. Everyone fanned out looking for a little blonde girl in pink and white pajamas. Portuguese police were called at 10:47 p.m. They arrived quickly, but not quickly enough. Already the scene was contaminated. Dozens of people had walked through apartment 5A, walked past the window, touched surfaces. The crime scene, if it was a crime scene, was being destroyed with every passing minute. The first hours of the investigation were chaotic. Portuguese police set up roadblocks, but not until after midnight. By then, whoever had taken Madeleine could have been miles away, could have crossed into Spain, could have disappeared completely. Kate and Gerry were distraught. Kate clutched Madeleine's cuddle cat toy, refusing to let it go. Gerry made phone calls to family, to the British Embassy, to anyone who might help. The media arrived quickly. By morning, Praia da Luz was swarming with journalists from around the world. This wasn't just any missing child case. The McCanns were articulate, photogenic, middle-class British doctors. Madeleine was a beautiful blonde child with distinctive eyes, a rare condition called coloboma that made part of her right iris appear to run into her pupil. That distinctive eye feature became crucial. It meant Madeleine couldn't be hidden easily. Anyone looking at her would notice. The McCanns and police hoped this would make it harder for an abductor to keep her concealed. Within days, Madeleine's face was everywhere. Newspapers, television, billboards, websites. Find Madeleine campaigns spread across Europe. Celebrities endorsed the search. The Portuguese police coordinated with Interpol. Tips poured in from dozens of countries. But despite the massive publicity, despite thousands of tips, despite searches involving police, volunteers, and tracking dogs, there was no sign of Madeleine McCann. The Portuguese investigation was led by the Polícia Judiciária, the PJ. The lead investigator was Goncalo Amaral, a seasoned detective with decades of experience. But from the beginning, there were problems with how the investigation was handled. The apartment hadn't been properly sealed. Evidence collection was delayed. Witness statements were contradictory. And perhaps most critically, the Portuguese police began to suspect the McCanns themselves. This suspicion grew from several factors. First, the timeline. The parents claimed they were checking on the children every 30 minutes. But if that was true, how did someone enter the apartment, take Madeleine, and leave without being seen? The window of opportunity was incredibly narrow. Second, the parents' behavior. Some people thought Kate and Gerry seemed too composed, too media-savvy. They gave interviews, organized campaigns, met with the Pope. To some observers, they didn't seem to be grieving properly. Of course, everyone grieves differently, but suspicion was growing. Third, there was Robert Murat, a British-Portuguese man who lived near the resort. He'd inserted himself into the investigation as a translator. Within days, police and journalists found him suspicious. His behavior was odd. He gave conflicting statements. On May 14th, just 11 days after Madeleine vanished, Murat was named an arguido, a formal suspect under Portuguese law. But the evidence against Murat was circumstantial. Witnesses said they'd seen him near the apartment that night. He denied it. His property was searched. Nothing was found. Still, for months, Robert Murat remained the prime suspect. Then, in July 2007, the investigation took a dramatic turn. British police sent specialist sniffer dogs to Portugal. These weren't ordinary search dogs. They were cadaver dogs, trained to detect the scent of human decomposition, and blood detection dogs, trained to find traces of blood even after surfaces have been cleaned. The dogs were brought into apartment 5A. The cadaver dog, a Springer Spaniel named Eddie, immediately showed interest in several locations: behind the sofa in the living room, in the parents' bedroom, and most significantly, in the wardrobe where Kate's clothes were kept. The blood detection dog, another Springer Spaniel named Keela, also alerted in the apartment, behind the sofa, and on the tiles by the window in the children's bedroom. Then the dogs were brought to the vehicle the McCanns had rented 25 days after Madeleine disappeared. Eddie, the cadaver dog, alerted in the trunk of the car. So did Keela, the blood dog. The Portuguese police theory began to crystallize. They believed Madeleine had died in apartment 5A, possibly by accident. They theorized the parents had hidden her body, then later moved it in the rental car. The dog's alerts seemed to support this theory. But there were problems with this theory. First, the dog's alerts were not definitive evidence. The handlers themselves said the dogs could alert to other substances. Second, no body had been found. Third, how could the parents have hidden a body with the entire resort and media watching them? Fourth, the rental car wasn't obtained until weeks after Madeleine vanished. Where had the body been in the meantime? Despite these questions, on September 7th, 2007, 4 months after Madeleine vanished, Kate and Gerry McCann were formally declared arguidos, suspects. They were questioned separately for hours. The pressure was immense. Kate was asked if she had given Madeleine sedatives to make her sleep. She denied it. She was asked if Madeleine had died in the apartment. She denied it. She was asked if she had hidden the body. She denied everything. The Portuguese police offered Kate a deal if she confessed to accidentally killing Madeleine and claimed it was an accident. She would receive a lighter sentence, perhaps only 2 years in prison. Kate refused. She maintained her innocence. Both she and Gerry passed polygraph tests, though polygraphs are not admissible in court and are not considered conclusive. The media coverage became vicious. British tabloids that had initially supported the McCanns now turned on them. Headlines screamed about their guilt. Anonymous police sources leaked details, often inaccurate, that painted the parents as suspects. The court of public opinion was divided. Some believed the McCanns were innocent victims. Others were convinced they were guilty of something. In September 2007, Kate and Gerry returned to the UK with their twins. They couldn't stay in Portugal any longer. The pressure was unbearable, but leaving also looked suspicious to some. Why would innocent parents leave the country where their daughter went missing? In July 2008, the Portuguese investigation was officially archived. There wasn't enough evidence to charge anyone. Kate and Gerry McCann had their arguido status lifted. So did Robert Murat. The official conclusion was that there was no evidence of what had happened to Madeleine McCann. But the lead investigator, Goncalo Amaral, wasn't finished. He retired from the police force and wrote a book called The Truth of the Lie. In it, he laid out his theory that Madeleine had died in apartment 5A and that her parents had covered it up. The book became a bestseller in Portugal. The McCanns sued Amaral for libel. The legal battle would last for years, going back and forth through Portuguese courts. Eventually, in 2017, Portugal's Supreme Court ruled in favor of Amaral, citing freedom of expression. the McCanns had to pay his legal costs. Meanwhile, the search for Madeleine continued. The McCanns established a fund, Find Madeleine, that raised millions of pounds. They hired private investigators. They followed up on thousands of tips from around the world. There were numerous reported sightings, a girl matching Madeleine's description in Morocco, another in Belgium, another in New Zealand. Each time hopes were raised. Each time the lead turned out to be nothing. In 2011, the British government, under pressure from the McCanns and the public, launched Operation Grange. The Metropolitan Police would conduct their own review of the case. Fresh eyes, fresh resources, a budget of millions of pounds. Surely this would finally solve the mystery. Operation Grange was led by Detective Chief Inspector Andy Redwood. His team reviewed everything, over 40,000 documents, thousands of hours of CCTV footage, hundreds of witness statements. They re-interviewed key witnesses. They examined all the evidence with modern forensic techniques. Their approach was fundamentally different from the Portuguese investigation. They operated on the assumption that Madeleine had been abducted by a stranger. They were not investigating the parents. They were looking for an intruder. The British team identified hundreds of potential suspects. They focused particularly on known sex offenders and burglars who had been operating in the Algarve region in 2007. Several men had been breaking into holiday apartments. Some had assaulted tourists. Could one of these men have taken Madeleine? Operation Grange also re-examined the timeline of that night. They spoke again to Jane Tanner, who'd seen a man carrying a child. They found other witnesses who'd seen suspicious men near the resort. One couple, the Smiths, reported seeing a man carrying a sleeping child toward the beach around 10 p.m. Shortly after Kate discovered Madeleine was missing. The man looked uncomfortable, nervous. Years later, the Smiths said the man resembled Gerry McCann, but Gerry had been at the restaurant with multiple witnesses at that time. By 2013, Operation Grange had identified 38 persons of interest. 12 of them were British. The investigation was making progress, but still, no breakthrough, no arrest, no Madeleine. Years passed. Madeleine's face remained famous around the world, but the active search began to wind down. The McCanns never gave up. Kate wrote a book about their experience. Gerry continued working as a doctor. They raised their twins, now growing into teenagers, trying to give them as normal a life as possible. Every year on Madeleine's birthday, May 12th, the McCanns would release a statement, sometimes a new age-progressed image showing what Madeleine might look like now. Each birthday was a reminder of what they'd lost. Madeleine would have been 5, then 10, then 15. The public's attention drifted. There were other news stories, other missing children. The Madeleine McCann case became a cautionary tale about leaving children alone, about the dangers of holiday resorts, about media circuses and flawed investigations. But behind the scenes, Operation Grange continued working, quietly, methodically, following leads that went nowhere, checking and rechecking evidence. The budget had been extended multiple times. Some critics asked whether the money could be better spent on other missing children cases. Why did Madeleine McCann get such special treatment? Then, in June 2020, 13 years after Madeleine vanished, there was a breakthrough. German police announced they had a new suspect, a man who had been living in the Algarve in 2007, a convicted sex offender with a history of crimes against children. His name was Christian Brueckner. Christian Brueckner, a 43-year-old German national, and the moment his name was released, the investigation exploded back into the headlines. Who was Christian Brueckner? His background was disturbing. Born in Germany, he'd been in and out of prison since he was a teenager. Theft, drug dealing, assault. But more seriously, sex crimes against children. In 2016, he was convicted of sexual assault on a child. He was known to police across Europe. In 2007, Brueckner had been living near Praia da Luz. He lived in a ramshackle farmhouse just outside town. He had no steady job. Some said he dealt drugs. Others said he burglarized holiday homes. He was known to hang around the resort areas. Here's what made him a suspect. On the night Madeleine disappeared, Brueckner's phone received a call. The call came at 7:32 p.m. and lasted 30 minutes. Phone records show Brueckner was in the area of Praia da Luz when he received this call. In fact, analysis of cell tower data placed his phone very close to the Ocean Club resort. Who called him? The German police know, but they've never publicly revealed the caller's identity. But the timing is significant. This call happened just before the McCanns went to dinner, just before Madeleine was taken. But there was more, much more. After the announcement about Brueckner, witnesses came forward with chilling information. A friend of Brueckner's came forward. He told police that Brueckner had confessed to him. They'd been sitting in a bar in Germany in 2017, watching a news report about the 10th anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance. Brueckner had allegedly said something like, "She didn't scream," or "I know what happened." The witness said Brueckner seemed to be bragging or confessing. Another witness reported seeing Brueckner near the Ocean Club on the night of May 3rd. He was acting strangely, pacing near the apartments. This witness didn't come forward for years, scared, unsure. But when Brueckner was named as a suspect, the witness contacted police. German police searched properties connected to Brueckner. They found videotapes, disturbing videotapes. Some showed Brueckner abusing women and children. Some showed him in what appeared to be holiday apartments, apartments he had no right to be in. Was he burglarizing them, or something worse? Most significantly, German police found evidence that Brueckner had been breaking into holiday apartments in the Algarve for years. His method was always the same, late at night. Patio doors or windows, he would steal valuables. But there were also reports of sexual assaults, women waking to find a masked man in their rooms. In 2005, 2 years before Madeleine vanished, Brueckner had committed a particularly horrific crime. He broke into an apartment in Praia da Luz, the same resort area. He raped a 72-year-old American woman. The crime was brutal, violent. He filmed it. The video was later found in his possession. Brueckner was convicted of this rape in 2019. He's currently serving a 7-year sentence in Germany. But German authorities believe he's responsible for much more. The German prosecutor leading the Brueckner investigation is Hans Christian Wolters. He made a statement that shocked the world. "We are assuming that Madeleine McCann is dead. We have evidence that the suspect killed her, but we cannot reveal what that evidence is." Map dead, After 13 years of hoping, praying, searching, German police were saying Madeleine was dead, and they believed Christian Brueckner killed her. But they wouldn't say what their evidence was. They couldn't, not without compromising the investigation. This created a terrible situation for the McCanns, hope and despair fighting for space in their hearts. If German police were right, their daughter had been dead for 13 years. But without a body, without definitive proof, how could they accept that? Kate and Gerry released a statement. "We will never give up hope of finding Madeleine alive, but whatever the outcome, we need to know as we need to find peace." They had lived in limbo for 13 years. Not knowing was its own special torture. So what evidence do German police have? They won't say publicly, but there have been leaks, rumors, reports from journalists with inside sources. Some reports suggest they found photos or videos on Brueckner's devices. Others suggest they have testimony from accomplices or witnesses. Still others claim they have forensic evidence linking Brueckner to apartment 5A. But none of this has been confirmed, and critically, Christian Brueckner has not been charged with anything related to Madeleine McCann. Why not? The problem is evidence. German law requires very strong evidence to charge someone with murder, especially without a body. Prosecutors need to prove not just that Brueckner could have done it, but that he did. And after 17 years, that's incredibly difficult. Brueckner himself has denied any involvement. Through his lawyers, he's maintained his innocence. He says he was nowhere near the Ocean Club that night. He says the phone records don't prove anything. He says the witnesses are lying or mistaken. His defense team points out that Brueckner was already a known criminal in 2007. Portuguese police had investigated him back then. As part of their sweep of local offenders, they'd ruled him out. Why should he suddenly be the prime suspect 13 years later? But German police remain convinced. They've dedicated enormous resources to building their case against Brueckner. They've conducted multiple searches, his former homes, storage units, even an allotment garden he used to rent, which they excavated looking for remains. They found nothing. In 2022, Brueckner was formally declared a suspect, an arguido, by Portuguese authorities. This was significant because it meant the investigation was no longer just German. Portugal was officially pursuing him as well. It also meant the statute of limitations was paused, buying investigators more time. As of early 2025, 5 years after Brueckner was first named, there has been no charge. The investigation continues. Prosecutors say they're building their case. Critics say they don't have enough evidence and never will. So where does that leave us? 18 years after Madeleine McCann vanished, we still don't know for certain what happened to her. There are theories, multiple theories, each with evidence supporting it, each with problems. Theory 1. The stranger abduction. This is what the British police and the McCanns believe. Someone, possibly Brueckner, possibly someone else, entered apartment 5A and took Madeleine. Perhaps the intention was kidnapping for ransom. Perhaps sexual assault. Perhaps trafficking. Madeleine was taken away from Praia da Luz that night and has never been found. This theory is supported by witness statements of suspicious men in the area. It's supported by Brueckner's presence in history, but it struggles to explain the lack of evidence, the narrow window of opportunity. the fact that no one heard or saw anything definitive. Theory 2. The accidental death and cover-up. This is what Goncalo Amaral and some Portuguese investigators believe. Madeleine died in apartment 5A, possibly by accident, possibly from sedation gone wrong. The parents panicked and hid the body. This theory is supported by the cadaver dog's alerts. It's supported by some inconsistencies in the parents' statements, but it requires believing the McCanns, educated, professional people, would commit a horrific cover-up. It requires believing they could hide and dispose of a body while under intense scrutiny, and it provides no explanation for where the body is. Theory 3. The burglary gone wrong. Someone was burglarizing apartments at the resort. They entered 5A not knowing a child was there. Madeleine woke up. The burglar panicked and took her. This theory explains the unlocked patio door and the raised window shutter, but it doesn't explain why a burglar would take a child. That dramatically increases risk with no benefit. Theory 4. The trafficking ring. Some investigators believe Madeleine was taken by an organized child trafficking network. Her distinctive eye feature would make her valuable, recognizable, a collector's item for sick individuals who trade in child abuse material. This theory explains why no body has been found, because Madeleine might still be alive somewhere. It explains the professional nature of the abduction. No evidence left behind, perfectly timed, but it requires believing in a level of criminal sophistication that seems unlikely for a random target. How would traffickers have known about Madeleine specifically? Theory 5. The lone predator. This is essentially the Brueckner theory. A sexual predator who stalked the resort, identified vulnerable targets, and struck. Brueckner, or someone like him, took Madeleine for his own purposes. He killed her that night or shortly after. He disposed of her body where it has never been found. This theory fits much of the evidence. It fits the phone records. It fits witness statements. It fits the profile of someone like Brueckner. But without a body or confession, it remains just a theory. Which theory is correct? After 18 years, countless investigations, millions of pounds spent, we still don't know. And that's the true horror of this case, the not knowing, the absence of closure, the questions that may never be answered. What we do know is this: a 3-year-old girl vanished from a holiday apartment in Portugal, despite one of the largest missing person investigations in history, despite worldwide publicity, despite thousands of tips and leads. Madeleine McCann has never been found. The impact of this case extends far beyond one family. It changed how we think about child safety on holidays. Resorts now offer baby monitoring services. Parents are more cautious about leaving children alone. The Madeleine effect made society more aware of the dangers. But the case also revealed the worst of human nature. The McCanns were subjected to horrific abuse, death threats, accusations, conspiracy theories claiming they were part of satanic cults, that Madeleine never existed, that the twins were involved. The internet became a cesspool of amateur detectives convinced they'd solved the case, hurling accusations with no evidence. The media played a complex role. Initially sympathetic, they created the massive publicity that might have helped find Madeleine. But they also turned on the McCanns when the story shifted. They paid for witnesses' stories, potentially contaminating evidence. They camped outside the family's home. They treated tragedy as entertainment. Kate McCann has spoken about the toll this took, the depression, the guilt, the why did we leave them question that haunts every moment. She's spoken about Madeleine's bedroom, kept exactly as it was. The clothes waiting to be worn, the toys waiting to be played with, a shrine to a little girl who might be dead or might be alive somewhere, not knowing who she is. Gerry has been more stoic publicly, but the pain is evident. He said that not knowing is the hardest part. If we knew she was dead, we could grieve. If we knew she was alive, we could hope. But this limbo, this is torture. The twins, Sean and Amélie, are now 20 years old. They were 2 when their sister vanished. They have no memory of her. They've grown up in the shadow of this tragedy. Their sister's face on every anniversary, every news report. How do you process that? How do you have a normal childhood when the world knows your family's worst moment? Kate and Gerry have tried to shield them, but it's impossible. The twins know their parents are forever linked to one of the most famous mysteries in the world. They know there are people who think their parents killed their sister. They know their lives will never be truly normal. As of January 2025, the investigation remains officially active. Operation Grange continues, though with a much smaller team and budget. The Portuguese investigation continues. The German investigation into Christian Brueckner continues. But progress, real progress, remains elusive. In late 2024, there were reports that German prosecutors were preparing to charge Brueckner. The reports suggested this could happen in early 2025. But as of now, January 2025, no charges have been filed. Prosecutors say they're still building their case. They say they're confident, but they've been saying that for years. Brueckner himself remains in prison in Germany, serving his sentence for the rape of the American tourist. His sentence is due to end in 2026. If he's not charged with something else, he'll walk free. German prosecutors are racing against time. There have been other developments in recent years. In 2023, German police searched a reservoir near where Brueckner lived, the Arada Dam, about 30 miles from Praia da Luz. They brought in divers, sonar equipment, excavators. They spent days searching. Media from around the world descended on the site. What did they find? Officially, nothing significant. But rumors persist that they found items belonging to Brueckner, possibly items linked to his criminal activities, but nothing conclusively linked to Madeleine. Another dead end, another hope raised and dashed. The Portuguese police have also conducted new searches. In 2024, they excavated areas near Praia da Luz based on new information. Again, nothing was found, or at least nothing was publicly announced. This is the frustrating reality of the investigation. So much happens behind closed doors. Prosecutors can't reveal their evidence. Police can't discuss ongoing operations. The public and the McCanns are left waiting, hoping, wondering if this will be the breakthrough. Some experts believe we may never know what happened to Madeleine. Too much time has passed. Too much evidence has been lost or contaminated. Too many witnesses have died or can't remember clearly. The apartment where she vanished has been remodeled multiple times. The resort has changed. Praia da Luz itself has moved on. But the McCanns haven't moved on, can't move on. How could they? Every year, on May 3rd, the anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance, the McCanns release a statement. The wording changes slightly each year, but the message is the same. They haven't given up. They still believe Madeleine could be found. They still hope for answers. In May 2024, the 17th anniversary, Kate wrote, "The police investigation continues. We wait, we hope, we pray, and we will never stop looking for you, Madeleine." 17 years. Madeleine would be 20 years old now, the same age as her twin siblings. She would be at university, maybe, starting a career, falling in love, living a life. Or, if German prosecutors are right, she died when she was 3 years old. She never had a chance to grow up, never went to school, never had a first kiss, never became the person she was meant to be. This is the tragedy that haunts not just the McCanns, but millions of people around the world who followed this story. The loss of potential, the loss of innocence, the reminder that terrible things can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Some people criticize the attention given to Madeleine's case. They point out that thousands of children go missing every year. Many of them receive little media coverage. Many are never found. What makes Madeleine different? Is it because her parents were middle class and white? Is it because she was photogenic? Is it because her parents were articulate and media savvy? These are uncomfortable questions, but they're valid. The missing white woman syndrome is real. Some victims get attention, others don't. It's not fair, it's not right, but it's reality. But regardless of the reasons for the attention, the fact remains. Madeleine McCann is missing, and her parents deserve answers. Every missing child deserves the same effort, the same resources, the same determination to find the truth. The Madeleine McCann case has led to some positive changes. The European Union implemented new laws about cross-border investigations of missing children. Police forces improved their protocols for handling abduction cases. Parents became more aware of safety issues. Hotels and resorts improved their security. But these improvements came at a terrible cost. They came from the suffering of one family, from the loss of one little girl, and from the collective trauma of a case that has haunted the world for 18 years. So what happens now? Where does the investigation go from here? As of early 2025, several things are happening. German prosecutors continue building their case against Christian Brueckner. They've said, repeatedly, that they have evidence he killed Madeleine, but they haven't charged him. The clock is ticking. His current prison sentence ends in September 2026. If they don't charge him before then, he could walk free. British police continue Operation Grange. The budget has been cut significantly. The team is much smaller, but they haven't closed the case. They're still following leads, still reviewing evidence, still hoping for that one crucial piece of information that will solve everything. Portuguese authorities have said they'll continue investigating as long as there's hope of finding answers. They've acknowledged mistakes were made in the early days of the investigation. They've cooperated with German and British authorities, but they too seem frustrated by the lack of progress. Will Madeleine McCann ever be found? Will we ever know what happened to her? The honest answer is, maybe not. As painful as that is to accept, it may be the reality. Thousands of people go missing and are never found. Their families live with the uncertainty forever. The McCanns may have to do the same. But there's also hope. Hope that German prosecutors do have solid evidence against Brueckner. Hope that a charge is coming. Hope that a trial will finally reveal what happened. Even if the outcome is tragic, even if it confirms Madeleine is dead, at least it would be an answer. At least the McCanns could grieve properly. At least they could find some measure of peace. There's also the small, flickering hope that Madeleine is still alive, somewhere, that she was taken and raised by someone else, that she doesn't remember who she really is, that one day, through day testing or a chance recognition, she'll be identified and reunited with her family. It's unlikely, but not impossible. And for Kate and Gerry McCann, that slim possibility is enough to keep hoping. The most likely scenario, according to most investigators, is that Madeleine died on the night she was taken. That Christian Brueckner, or someone like him, abducted her, killed her, and disposed of her body. That she's been dead for 18 years, buried, or hidden somewhere that may never be found. This is the scenario German prosecutors believe. This is what the evidence seems to point to. But without a body, without a confession, without that final piece of proof, it remains a theory, a strong theory, a likely theory, but still just a theory. The legacy of Madeleine McCann is complex. Her face became one of the most recognizable in the world. Her case changed laws, changed policies, changed how we think about child safety. But it also revealed the darkest aspects of human nature, the victim blaming, the conspiracy theories, the media exploitation, the armchair detectives who treated real tragedy as a puzzle to solve. Kate McCann has spoken about the online abuse, the accusatory messages, the people convinced she killed her own daughter. She's had to develop a thick skin to ignore the hatred, to focus on what matters, finding Madeleine, or finding out what happened to her. The case has also revealed the limitations of even the most well-funded investigations. Millions of pounds spent, thousands of hours of police work, international cooperation on an unprecedented scale, and still no definitive answer. It's humbling. It's frustrating. It's a reminder that some mysteries may never be solved. For true crime enthusiasts, the Madeleine McCann case is endlessly fascinating. The conflicting evidence, the multiple theories, the dramatic developments, the international scope. It has everything. Documentaries, podcasts, books, online forums, all dedicated to analyzing every detail of the case. But it's important to remember, this isn't fiction. This isn't entertainment. This is a real family's nightmare, a real child who disappeared, real parents who have suffered for 18 years, real siblings who grew up without their sister. When we discuss the case, we should do so with respect and compassion. What would Madeleine be like today if she were still alive? It's impossible to know. Age progression images show a young woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, a slight smile, her distinctive eye feature still visible. But these are just guesses. They're based on her parents' features, on growth patterns, on statistical averages. The real Madeleine, if she's alive, might look completely different. She would be studying at university now, or working. She might be interested in medicine like her parents, or art, or music, or anything. She would have friends, hobbies, dreams. She would be building a life. Or she would remember nothing of her first 3 years. If she was taken and raised by someone else, those early memories would be gone. She might not know she's Madeleine McCann. She might have grown up as someone else entirely. She might see her own missing person posters and not recognize herself. This is the hope that some people cling to, that Madeleine is alive, happy, loved, just unaware of who she really is. It's a comforting thought, but it's also heartbreaking, because if it's true, it means she's been stolen from her real family for 18 years. It means Kate and Gerry have been searching for a daughter who doesn't even know they exist. The more likely scenario, the one German prosecutors believe, is far darker. Madeleine died within hours or days of being taken. She never had a chance. Her life was cut short by a predator who saw an opportunity and took it. This scenario doesn't offer any comfort, but at least it offers closure. At least it's an answer. So we end where we began, with questions, with uncertainty, with a mystery that has consumed countless hours of investigation and captured the world's attention for nearly 2 decades. What happened to Madeleine McCann on the night of May 3rd, 2007? We may be close to an answer. German prosecutors say they have evidence. They say Christian Brueckner is responsible. They say they'll charge him soon, but we've heard these promises before. And until charges are filed, until a trial happens, until evidence is presented in court, we're still in the dark. The McCanns continue to wait, continue to hope, continue to live in the limbo of not knowing. Kate still keeps Madeleine's bedroom ready, still marks every birthday, still believes against all odds that she might see her daughter again. Gerry focuses on the twins, on his work, on supporting his wife. But the pain is always there. The guilt, the "what if we hadn't left them alone?" question that can never be answered. Madeleine McCann would be 20 years old now, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Instead, she's frozen in time as a 3-year-old girl with blonde hair and a distinctive eye. A face the world knows, a child the world mourns. This is the story of Madeleine McCann, a story without an ending, a mystery without a solution, a tragedy that continues to unfold. And until we know the truth, until we have answers, the question remains: what happened to Madeleine? Thank you for listening to this episode of Sleepy Mysteries. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to our channel. We bring you the most intriguing unsolved cases, paranormal mysteries, and true stories from history, all presented in a captivating narrative style designed to keep you engaged. We dive deep into cases that have puzzled investigators, haunted families, and captured the world's attention. From disappearances to hauntings, from unexplained phenomena to cold cases that refuse to be forgotten. We cover them all with thorough research and respectful storytelling. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new mystery. Leave a comment telling us which case you'd like us to cover next. And if this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up. It helps others discover these important stories. Remember, many of these aren't just mysteries. They're real people's lives, real families still searching for answers, real tragedies that deserve to be remembered. Until next time, sleep well and keep wondering. This has been Regina Sage Monroe for Sleepy Mysteries.